In September of last year, a woman in France just had a painting that had been hanging over her hot plate in her kitchen for some time. She decided to have an evaluator who was visiting in her town look at the painting and tell her if it had any value. She took it to the evaluator, and the evaluator looked at it and recognized that the painting, titled simply Crucifixion of Jesus, with a picture of Jesus on the cross, was valued as a precious art piece coming from the year 1280. The painting went to auction and sold for $26.8 million. A painting that was just hanging over a hot plate. Another couple in France opened their attic for someone to come in and repair the roof that was leaking, and they saw a painting in their attic. And they took the painting and had it evaluated. And it turned out to be done by somebody just prior to the Renaissance. It sold for $16.2 million. A painting that was just sitting in a leaking attic. And so that we don't think that all valued art pieces and treasures are in France, a couple in the United Kingdom recently were cleaning out their parents' home, and they came across a vase, just a plain vase with a cross on it. And they took it with other things to have them valued because they were going to do an estate sale. That vase was worth and sold for $18 million. Friends, people can look at pictures and just see pictures, or a vase or a piece of pottery and just see a piece of pottery. But when taken to somebody who knows the value of something, it turns out to be something entirely different. A few years ago, a woman teaching first grade in Canada had a classroom of students, several of whom were recent settled refugees. And she was teaching math one day, and as she taught, she was teaching them fractions and the difference between 1/2 and 1/4. She decided to give them a quiz at the end of the lesson, and she asked them how much of the candy bar did they want to keep in order to eat. As she wandered around the room looking at the papers, she noticed a pattern emerging in that the refugee children were writing down 1/4 rather than 1/2. And before accusing them of getting the answer wrong, she asked them why they were doing it. And they said, "We're doing it so that more people can have a taste of chocolate." They had gotten the lesson, and they were people who knew the value of sharing with other people. Think about our text for this morning. We have heard this text many, many, many times. And what we fail to realize were the first words in the passage. After he heard this, Jesus went away to a lonely place. After he heard what? It was right after he had heard that his good friend, John the Baptist, had been beheaded by King Herod. And he was going off to a lonely place so that he could pray, so that he could grieve, so that he could have time to recoup and recover. But what happened? The people found where he was. The people followed him to where he was. Now, if I were in that state of anger, state of grief, I would probably be pretty angry if 5,000 people showed up and wanted to be healed and taught. I would have seen nothing but my own grief. I would have seen nothing but my own hurt. You see, because I, like many others, often tend to see things through my eyes. But Jesus saw the people who gathered through eyes of compassion. For Jesus, his default setting was compassion. It was taking care of people. He knew that's why he put on human flesh and left the Godhead and came to earth to minister. So he did what that day? He ministered to them all day long. He healed people. He taught them. And then, as if that wasn't enough, at the end of the day, the disciples came and said, Jesus, we need to send these people away because we don't have enough food to feed them, and they're going to be hangry pretty soon. And Jesus said, no, we're going to feed them. So they scoured the crowd trying to find food in this remote location, and they came back with scarce food. They came back with a little bit of bread and a little bit of fish. And they said, Jesus, this is all we've got. It's not going to work. And Jesus said, yes, it is. And how did it work? It worked because he broke the bread and the fish, and he held them up to God, and God blessed them and turned it into enough to feed the 5,000, not counting the women and children. Friends, Jesus sees everybody with eyes of compassion. He sees everyone as an individual who's been made in the image of God. He sees everyone who has a need as being someone worthy of his ministry, his love, and his grace. The question I want to ask this morning is, what do you see? When you look around you, what do you see? Do you see your pain? Do you see the crisis of the pandemic as a threat to your existence? Do you see people begging who ought to be out trying to find work? What do you see when you look around you? I think the world is a far better place when we all follow the model of Jesus and see it with the eyes of Jesus, with the eyes of compassion. Because then we look around for ways we can be in ministry and ways we can help other people. We tend to think that we are powerless to do anything, so then we choose to do nothing. last year, Joe Burrows won the Heisman Trophy. Joe Burrows came from Athens, Ohio, which is one of the poorest towns in the poorest county in the state of Ohio. And when he was accepting the Heisman Trophy, he said, "I'm accepting this trophy on behalf of the young people from Athens County. And I'm accepting it for those who will go home knowing that there will be little food on the table. And to let them know that they too could one day be standing where I am." A man in Athens heard this. And he said, "You know, something needs to be done about this problem." So he made a donation of what he could, a small donation, and he put it on the social media outlets and that he was raising money. And within 6 weeks, they had raised $160,000 for the food bank in Athens, Ohio. All because someone saw a need and responded because they saw the possibility with a default of compassion. I encourage you to strive with me to see everything and everyone as individuals made in the image of God, and to see them with eyes of compassion, and for us together find ways that we can serve them. For we are Christians, and that is what Jesus calls us to do, to love one another as he has loved us. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.